Hey, it's Evelina. Welcome back. Today we're talking about anxious thoughts, and specifically why you can't stop them no matter how hard you try. If you've ever felt trapped by your own mind, constantly worrying, unable to turn off the mental chatter, this video is for you, because I'm going to explain why this happens. And once you understand it, everything changes. Let's get into it. Everyone has anxious thoughts. Some people have more, some have less, but everyone has them. The problem is when these thoughts become intrusive, when they loop endlessly, when they show up uninvited and refuse to leave. These thoughts create mental suffering, and they create physical suffering. Your body reacts to every anxious thought as if it's a real threat, and you try everything to make them stop. You try to distract yourself. You try to think positive. You try to argue with the thoughts. Nothing works. So let me explain why. Let's go back in time. Way back. To when humans lived in the wild. Imagine you're sleeping in a forest. It's quiet, peaceful. Then you hear a rustling in the bushes. What do? Do you roll over and go back to sleep? Of course not. You immediately think, danger, predator, threat. You grab a weapon, you go into fight or flight mode. You're ready to defend yourself. And here's the key. You don't know what's actually in the bushes. It could be a rabbit, it could be the wind. But your brain assumes the worst, because that's what kept you alive. The humans who heard a noise and thought, probably nothing, got eaten. They didn't survive to pass on their genes. The humans who heard a noise and thought, danger, survived. And they passed on their anxious, hypervigilant brains to us. So we inherited a brain that's designed to assume the worst, to constantly scan for threats, to think about everything that could go wrong. This was useful in the wild, but in the modern world, it's a disaster. In the modern world, we don't face life or death situations every day, but our brains still act like we do. You get a strange pain in your chest. Your brain says, heart attack, cancer, death. Your child is 5 minutes late coming home. Your brain says, kidnapped, murdered, gone forever. Your partner doesn't text back immediately. Your brain says, cheating, leaving, betrayal. These thoughts aren't rational, but they feel real, because your brain is doing what it was designed to do, protect you from danger. The problem is, most of the dangers your brain warns you about don't exist. And when you live in chronic stress, when you're constantly tense and overwhelmed, these anxious thoughts multiply. Your brain goes into overdrive. It can't stop scanning for threats. It can't stop warning you. And you end up with a mind that won't shut up. Here's what most people don't understand. You can't control your thoughts. You think you can. You think you should be able to just stop thinking negatively. But you can't. Thoughts arise automatically. Just like your heart beats automatically. Just like your stomach digests automatically. You don't choose your thoughts. They just appear. And the more you try to control them, the worse they get. Let me give you an example. Right now, don't think about a white bear. Seriously, do not picture a white bear in your mind. What happened? You immediately thought of a white bear, didn't you? That's how thought suppression works. The more you try not to think something, the more you think it. So when you try to stop anxious thoughts, you actually make them stronger. Now here's where it gets even more complicated. When you have an anxiety disorder, you don't just fear the situation. You fear your own thoughts about the situation. You're not actually afraid of flying. You're afraid of the panic you'll feel while flying. You're not afraid of your child going to school. You're afraid of the anxiety you'll feel while they're gone. You're not afraid of the intrusive thought. You're afraid that the thought means something terrible about you. So you end up in this trap. You're anxious about being anxious. You're afraid of your own fear. And that doubles your suffering? Most therapy tries to fix this by challenging your thoughts. You think, what if the plane crashes? The therapist says, look at the statistics. Flying is safe. Your fear is irrational. And you think, okay, but what if this plane is the exception? You think, what if something bad happens to my child? The therapist says, your neighborhood is safe, nothing will happen. And you think, but it could, it's possible. You see the problem? For every rational argument, your brain has a counter-argument. Because your brain's job isn't to be rational. Its job is to keep you alive. And from an evolutionary perspective, it's better to assume danger and be wrong than to assume safety and die. So arguing with anxious thoughts is pointless. You'll never win that argument. So what do you do instead? You change your relationship with your thoughts. You stop treating thoughts as facts. You stop treating them as commands you must obey. Instead, you recognize them for what they are, automatic mental events that your brain produces. Thoughts are not you. They're something your brain does. Just like your stomach digests food. You don't identify with your digestion. You don't think, I am my stomach acid. So why do you identify with your thoughts? Why do you think, I am my anxiety? You're not your thoughts. You're the person observing the thoughts. Here's what this looks like in practice. An anxious thought appears. What if something terrible happens? Old response. Oh no, that's a real possibility. I need to prevent it. I need to worry about it. I need to fix it. New response. That's an anxious thought. My brain is doing its threat detection thing again. That's just what brains do. You don't argue with it. You don't try to make it go away. You just acknowledge it. My brain is warning me about danger. That's its job. But I don't have to act on this warning. And then you go about your day. Now this sounds simple, but it's incredibly hard to do at first. Because your brain will scream at you. It will insist that this thought is important, that you need to pay attention, that something terrible will happen if you don't, and you'll feel anxiety, real physical anxiety. Your heart will race, your stomach will tighten, your chest will feel heavy. That's okay. That's just your body responding to the thought. You don't have to make that feeling go away either. You just let it be there. I'm feeling anxious. That's uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous. I can feel this and still function. This is acceptance. Real acceptance, and not I accept that I'll always be anxious. That's resignation. But I accept that anxiety is present right now. I don't have to fight it or fix it. I can carry it with me and still live my life. Here's what I want you to understand. The goal is not to eliminate anxious thoughts. You can't. They're part of being human. The goal is to stop being controlled by them. Right now, an anxious thought appears and you panic. You drop everything, you try to make it go away, you cancel plans, you avoid situations, you seek reassurance, you research symptoms online, you let the thought dictate your behavior. But when you change your relationship with thoughts, that stops. An anxious thought appears and you notice it, you acknowledge it. And then you do what you were going to do anyway. The thought is still there, but it's not in charge anymore. Let me give you a practical example. You're about to leave the house. An anxious thought appears. What if I have a panic attack while I'm out? Old response. Stay home. It's not worth the risk. Cancel your plans. New response. That's an anxious thought. My brain is warning me about a possible panic attack. Okay, I hear you, brain, but I'm going out anyway. If I have a panic attack, I'll handle it. But I'm not going to avoid my life because of a thought. And you leave. Will you feel anxious? Probably. But you're doing it anyway. And every time you do this, the thought loses a little bit of power. Your brain learns. This thought doesn't control me anymore. Now, there's one more piece to this. You need to accept the worst-case scenario that your thought is warning you about. Your brain says, what if something terrible happens? And instead of arguing with it, you say, you're right, something terrible could happen. Life is uncertain. Bad things do happen to people. My child could get hurt. I could lose my job. I could get sick. I could die. These are all possibilities. And if they happen, I'll deal with them. But I'm not going to spend my life trying to prevent every possible bad outcome. Because that's not living. That's just existing in fear. This sounds scary, but it's actually liberating. Because when you accept that bad things might happen, you stop fighting reality. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable. You stop exhausting yourself with worry. And you start living again. Here's what I want you to do. Next time an anxious thought shows up, don't fight it. Don't try to make it go away. Just notice it. Acknowledge it. That's an anxious thought. My brain is doing its thing. And then ask yourself, do I need to act on this thought right now? Or can I let it be here while I do what I need to do? Most of the time, you don't need to act on it. You can let it be there. And when you practice this over and over, your relationship with thoughts changes. They become less scary, less urgent, less powerful. They're just thoughts passing through your mind, like clouds passing through the sky. One more thing. You don't need to analyze every single anxious thought. You don't need to challenge each one individually. Just practice this principle with a few thoughts, and it will generalize to all of them. Your brain will learn, oh, thoughts aren't commands. Thoughts aren't facts. Thoughts are just thoughts. And that changes everything. Alright, that's it for today. If this video helped, subscribe for more. I share real practical strategies for dealing with anxiety. And if you want my complete system, check out my 7-lesson course. Link in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.